Okay, you fans of popular culture of the 20th century, where I'm at and what I have in front of me on Pacific Coast Highway in what once was the Castellamare neighborhood of Pacific Palisades, right in front of us over there. And that red tile roof Spanish Moroccan building was once Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, opened in 1934. Thelma Todd, the Ice Cream Blonde herself, she opened that with her boyfriend, director Roland West. And on the top floor there, she lived with him. And to the side was Hoya's Room, a very Tony, expensive restaurant for the glitterati of Hollywood and Los Angeles. Hoya means jewel in Spanish, and it was named after Roland West's estranged wife, Jewel Carmen, who lived up there behind the restaurant on Positano Road, where on the morning of Monday, December 16th, the Ice Cream Blonde herself, Thelma Todd, at age 29, was found dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. It remains one of the greatest unsolved Hollywood mysteries of all time. I'm going to take you fans of Thelma Todd. She actually was in 120 films with Laurel and Hardy, the Marx Brothers, Charlie Chase, Buster Keaton, and many, many great, wonderful films. In fact, she was in the first talkie with Laurel and Hardy ever in 1929. She was actually on the night of December 14th on a Friday. She went to the Cafe Trocadero on Sunset Boulevard to a party hosted by Stanley Lupino, the father of Ida Lupino, who was 16 at the time. They were English actors, and she was dropped off here by her chauffeur Ernest Peters on the early morning of December 15th, Sunday, and she went missing, and she wasn't found until Monday, after the Hal Roach Studios got suspicious. Laurel and Hardy, wondering why she hadn't showed up at her last film, The Bohemian Girl with Laurel and Hardy. Now, the chauffeur, his name is Ernest Peters. He said he dropped her off, I think, about 3 a.m. They said she staggered up to the back door. Roland, her boyfriend, said that he was a sound sleeper. It was a blustery, cold night. He said he didn't hear her. And then on top of the garage where she was found dead, Rudy Schaefer, the brother of Jewel Carmen, who still lived in the house that her and Roland West had lived in. She lived behind the garage. Well, Rudy Schaefer, he said that he didn't hear anything either. So, like I said, it's a big mystery. Nobody knows quite what happened. All they know is that she was found in the garage, allegedly to keep warm, because she was stuck out in the middle of the night, and it took a whole day, 2 days, for them to find her body at age 29. Okay, I'm going to take you fans to where she would have knocked that night, and then how she staggered up, hypothetically up to Positano Road. And I'm going to show you fans all over the world how far it is, and I'm going to see if it was possible or even plausible for her to walk with high heels up these vertical stairs. At the time they were made out of wood, and now they're made out of cement, but everything looks pretty much preserved from that time extant. She had high heels. She was slightly drunk. Ernest Peters, the chauffeur said, and she had her blue evening gown on. And so allegedly or hypothetically, she went into the garage to keep warm in her Lincoln Phaeton. So okay, so follow me and let's go. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you fans of films and popular culture of the 1930s, we're in the neighborhood, what they used to call Castellamare, in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood of Los Angeles, in the Santa Monica Bay. Okay, the Ice Cream Blonde, She owned this restaurant with her boyfriend, living companion, Roland West, the director. And they lived in that right there, in that octagonal shaped part of the restaurant. And at that time period in the 1930s, a lot of the Hollywood glitterati, gangsters, politicians, the most famous celebrities stopped at this so-called Sidewalk Cafe. And thankfully it's extant, it looks original. It was just sold for $6 million. And the famous actress Lola Lane, she was married to Roland West, the former boyfriend of Thelma Todd, and she deeded this land when she died to a priest and his TV production company called the Paulist Productions. And they finally sold out to some property development. And let me quote from the famous Raymond Chandler. They used to call this highway right here Roosevelt Highway. Now it's Pacific Coast Highway. And they said that Raymond Chandler, the great master of simile, he was obsessed with the death of Thelma Todd. He must have stopped here many times traveling up this way to picnic with his wife Sissy after he got fired from the Dabney Oil Syndicate. And maybe that's why he referenced this restaurant in a couple of his stories. Actually, it was in 1937's Mandarin Jade that came out in Black Mask magazine, and then he later cannibalized that story into Farewell My Lovely. Well, let me quote what he said. He said, Castellamare was in the city limits, but didn't look it, being a couple of houses of various sizes hanging by their eyebrows to the side of a mountain, and looking as if a good sneeze would drop them down among the box lunches on the beach. There was a Sidewalk Cafe up on the highway, and beside that, a cement arch. Which was really a pedestrian bridge. From the inner end of this, a flight of white concrete steps went straight as a ruler up the side of the mountain. Okay, well, since that time, they put that retaining wall there that you see right there, but at that time you could cross over this pedestrian bridge, which it's original from that time. The only difference is I think they replaced it with this the arch right here. That's new, but at that time you could go up that side of the hill to Positano Road, where they found the great Thelma Todd dead at age 29. And this is the route she would have taken, knocking on that cold, blustery December night, trying to get into her apartment, while her boyfriend Roland West was sleeping in there, and who later became one of the main suspects to her alleged murder. Okay, let's go across there and let's get a shot of the inside of the Ice Cream Blond's restaurant, Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe. Okay, let's go. Okay, I just thought it'd be interesting to let you persons know all over the world that that was once the J. Paul Getty mansion, and behind that he built a Pompeian villa, and now it's the J. Paul Getty Art Museum. Okay, here we go. This is the original stairwell when the great Thelma Todd lived here, and you can see it. You can Google this bridge, you can see it, but there are the famous steps that Ernest Peters, her chauffeur, dropped her off on PCH. He said about 2 a.m. and these are the original stairs that you would have seen Thelma Todd. If you could somehow go back in time on that blustery night, she would have walked up this stairwell right here, and then the rest of the way were really old rickety wooden steps that are torn out now. And this is where she would have probably been knocking on that cold, blustery night to be let in into her apartment. And they said that there was kind of like a goof that her maid May Whitehead did. She said that she was carrying a little purse, and instead of the 2 keys, she only had 1 key with her. And Roland, obviously or apparently, he said that he didn't know that she only had 1 key, so he locked the deadbolt, maybe even that door. And on that cold, blustery, windy night, he said that if she was even knocking on that door, that he would not have heard her, because he said that he was a very, very heavy sleeper. And so in order to keep warm, they claim that she went up these stairs all the way to Positano Road. She was slightly drunk, Ernest Peters said. So okay, let's go, and let's follow the route the Ice Cream Blonde herself would have followed. Okay, let's go. Okay, I'm at the top behind Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, as you can see, but not quite yet ready. Way at the top to film from up above to down below right here. But I just wanted to quote right here what Raymond Chandler, the great master of simile, said in Mandarin's Jade. So I parked my old blue Chrysler down below and walked up. It was a fine evening, and there was some sparkle on the water when I started. It had all gone when I reached the top. I sat down on the top step and rubbed my leg muscles and waited for my pulse to come down into the low hundreds. After that, I shook my shirt loose from my back and went along to the house, which was the only one in the foreground. Okay, here you go, you fans of the great actress Thelma Todd. Here's the back entrance to her once Sidewalk Cafe. And apparently they said on that cold, blustery night, she walked with high heels, a blue evening gown. And here's the apartment where she once lived in with Roland West. And she figured the career of an actress at that time wouldn't last very long, so she wanted to have some security in her old age. So this is why she glommed on to Roland West's idea to buy this property right here and to go into business so she could have something for her old age and to be able to take care of her mother, Alice. Okay, well, look at that original red tile Spanish roof there on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And she was actually she was so well liked by Laurel and Hardy that they even picked her to be in their first talkie, Unaccustomed as We Are, which came out May 4th, 1929. And along these streets right here, they said that at that time period they were not cul-de-sacs. Now they're all closed off. But I've Googled pictures of this area right here, and they did have that lamppost from that time period, the 1930s. And there was even a sign on it. And here are the other stairs, but like I said, at that time period they were rickety wooden stairs. Okay, so let's continue the path that happened on that tragic night, December 15th, because she got home from the Cafe Trocadero about 2 a.m. like I said. And these probably would have been replaced right after she died in that period. You can tell the type of architecture. And at that time they were wooden steps. So this is the route that the Ice Cream Blonde herself would have taken on that blustery night. Okay, let's go. Okay, we're continuing up to Positano Road, and there's her cafe right there where the red doors are, the back entrance. And let me pan around here, and as you can see, the steps keep on going up. And let me quote from Farewell My Lovely right here at this point. And as you fans all know, the great master of simile, he would always cannibalize his stories from early in his career. And I'll start right here in chapter 7. I know where Montemare Vista is, Mr. Marriott. Yes, well, Cabrillo Street is rather hard to find. The streets down here are all laid out in a pattern of interesting but intricate curves. I should suggest that you walk up the steps from the Sidewalk Cafe. If you do that, Cabrillo Street is the 3rd street you come to, and my house is the only one on the block. At 7 then. Okay, well, let's continue up the steps on that famous night that nobody will ever know, but look at this interesting artifact from the 1920s. It was, I think that was one of, they called a police box, and the old-fashioned street lamp from that time period. And that building where Thelma Todd built her restaurant, it was built in 1928 by the land developer, tennis champion Alfonso Bell. And as you can see right here, they closed off the stairs, unfortunately, so we're gonna have to go back to Pacific Coast Highway and drive up to the top. And sadly, we'll never know. After the inquest, after they found her dead on the Monday morning of December 16th, after being in the garage that was owned by the actress Jill Carmen, the estranged wife of Roland West, her brother Rudy Schaefer, he lived above that garage, and he said he didn't hear anything. But it kind of makes you wonder, well, why if Thelma Todd was caught out in the cold that night, why she wouldn't have banged on the door of Rudy Schaefer in that small garage above the garage. And okay, well, let's go down. Let's get a shot of the inside of Thelma Todd's famous cafe, where the most famous personages of the 1930s used to stop by and make reservations at the famous Hoya's restaurant, which was incidentally named after Jewel Carmen, Roland West's estranged wife. And it kind of makes you wonder, if they were estranged and Roland was living with Thelma, why would he name the restaurant after his wife, Jewel? Okay, let's go down to what once was Roosevelt Highway. Okay, I finally got up to the top of Positano Road, as you can see, and thankfully this is extant in perfect condition. This was Roland West, the director, producer. This was his former home, and Jewel, his wife, estranged, she lived in that house up above. That was his mansion. And in this garage, this apartment garage right here above, where the Ice Cream Blond was found Monday morning, December 16th, 1935, dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. That's where Roland West's brother-in-law, Rudy Schaefer, lived, and he was also the manager of the Sidewalk Cafe. And this is where they found her. And according to the inquest, I've heard too many different versions. They said that Thelma had a broken nose, bruises around her throat, and 2 cracked ribs. Okay, let's go down. Here you go, Positano Road. And I saw that the road behind Thelma Todd's restaurant, when I came down those stairs, there was a at one time a road, but they tore it out, but there was at least a walkway. So you fans, you can see the route that she would have staggered up that night. They said that Thelma, she had been harassed by gangsters to open up a gambling casino, but a lot of people said it was a gangster named Lucky Luciano at the time. But then they said that the FBI had been watching Lucky Luciano at the time. They said he was nowhere near this area on the weekend that they found Thelma Todd dead. And there's a shot right up there, and as you could see, we were the owners of the current mansion that was once owned by Roland West. She came out, but she was cool about it. Okay, anyway, getting back to those gangsters, they said that what they wanted to do was they wanted to put gambling on her third floor at the restaurant. And like I said, I don't know if it's apocryphal because Lucky Luciano was in Kansas at the time, like they said. And anyway, it makes sense that they wanted to use her restaurant because there was a lot of, like I said, really powerful studio bosses that would go to the restaurant. And according to people at that time period, they said, well, if they could get these studio executives in debt to them, that they would be able to take over the film studios. So kind of makes sense. And they said that she had been approached. I guess maybe she had told friends, her mother, maybe Alice, whatever the case may be. But they said that's probably why they killed her. But then the actor Chester Morris, a friend of Roland West, when he died in I think the 1940s, if I think that was around the time that he died, he claims that Roland West allegedly confessed on his deathbed that he killed Thelma Todd. So I don't think Chester Morris, the actor, you can see him in a lot of films from that time period. I don't see why he would have lied, why he would have stained the integrity of his friend Roland West. But Roland was at the time one of the suspects, and I've read different accounts that she was bruised. She had bruises on her throat. She had broken ribs, and then other versions, they said all that was wrong with her was her lip was busted from falling against the steering wheel of her Lincoln Phaeton, her car. And at that time, if you know anything about those cars, that were made out of really hard metal. And so that could have been, but like I said, I've heard two different accounts. That if you got to think too, if she was that badly beat up, that would obviously be a good sign that she was foul play involved. So there's the bridge, and you persons all over the world, you saw the route. At that time period, the great Thelma Todd would have walked along this street right here. And well, when I read about her staggering up this way at that time period, I said, it's too far. They said 5 blocks and all this stuff. But I think it's perfectly plausible, if not possible, that she would have walked up this route by herself. But still, that begs the question, if she was beat up, but then again, they say she could have fallen along this route. She was slightly drunk, they said. She had high heels, she had an evening gown on. And right here, I'm walking through that path for you fans all over the world that can't come to Southern California to see for yourself. And if you're into a Hollywood history like I am, you'll know plain enough the great fantastic films the great Thelma Todd was in, Marx Brothers movies, Laurel and Hardy movies. And like I said before, she was very well liked by Laurel and Hardy, and they loved her so much that they said, well, we got to have Thelma in the opening scenes of our first talkie film, Unaccustomed As We Are. And here you go, there's another shot. So you persons all over the world, you can see. And apparently they said that the stairs really at that time didn't go up straight. They said that they came at an angle that way. So who knows? So let's go down to her cafe, but let me go along this route. And they also said that she had a house, I guess this is Tremonto, and her mother lived there, but she elected to live above the restaurant with Roland. And here's a little shot of the pathway, but at that time it was a street. And you fans of Raymond Chandler, you can read Mandarin's Jade. That's one of his short stories from 1937, and Farewell My Lovely. I really encourage you to read. That's some of the best literature of the 20th century. Okay, so let's go down and let's get a shot of the front of the great Thelma Todd's house. And here we go. As you can see, I'm still following the path that she most likely would have walked if she had walked at all that night, which kind of makes sense. They goofed up the keys, they said. She only had one key. And here we go. And that wasn't too bad. I could see a tough gal like her walking this route from over there, not being let in. And apparently, like they said, Roland West, he was sound asleep. He didn't hear anything. But then again, they did say that he admitted that he killed the beautiful, wonderful, talented actress Thelma Todd. So who knows? Allegedly, of course. Okay, so let's go. Let's end it. The route she took that night of December 15th, that morning, if you will. And she wasn't found until Monday morning, December 16th, 1935 at age 29. Okay, there it is. That's the door. Most likely that's the door, or maybe even that one over there. But that was the route she would have taken, and at that time period, the stairs went around, I guess, well, maybe these are the original stairs. Like, yeah, she would have walked up these stairs, and or perhaps this side, most likely this side. Okay, well, so let's go to the front of Thelma Todd Sidewalk Cafe. And please check out the few videos I've done of the homes where the great master himself lived in Los Angeles in the 1930s. Okay, let's go down there. Follow me. Okay, let's go to the front of Thelma Todd Sidewalk Cafe. And before I do, I just wanted to say an odd thing, mention something that was kind of strange. In 1931, Thelma Todd was in monkey business with the Marx Brothers, and Groucho said in the film to Thelma, he said, "You're a woman who's been getting nothing but dirty brakes. Well, we can clean and tighten your brakes, but you'll have to stay in the garage all night." So there you go. And that's how she died. She died in a garage. And stranger things have happened before people die. Synchronicity, if you will. And I read that they said that there was no retaining wall here, but there's no way that her back entrance could have been supported without this retaining wall. But I think what they probably meant was there was a side stairway that went up the side of this pedestrian bridge, up the side of the mountain. But okay, so let's go down here and get a shot around. And I mentioned that Thelma, she was in a lot of Laurel and Hardy films, 120 films altogether. And they said that Thelma opened this restaurant with Roland West the summer of 1934, and there was casual dining downstairs, and then there was kind of like a high Tony restaurant up at the top right there called Hoya's Room. And here was the cafe that Raymond Chandler quoted about in Mandarin's Jade and Farewell My Lovely. And here's that Spanish Moroccan tile. I'm sorry I can't get a shot of the inside, what were those reflecting windows, but here you go. Here's the famous entrance to Hoya's Room. And let me, there you go, on the glass etched, named after Jewel Carmen, the estranged wife of Roland West. And look at those great wrought iron lamps there, probably original. And thankfully this is original, and as you can see, the retrofitting in there. And that was Hoya's Room. And they said when Alfonso Bell built this building in 1928, he was a tennis champion, and he was also the nephew of John Edward Hollenbeck. He was a very wealthy man who founded the First National Bank Anyway, Alfonso Bell, he built this real estate in 1928, and in these arches were open stalls. They sold fruit, vegetables, kind of like a farmer's market. And they said that after the Wall Street crash, they were boarded up, and as you can see, obviously, that they're still boarded up. So this is where Thelma Todd, she opened this restaurant for security because she knew her career wouldn't last very long. With a director, producer, Roland West. And there you go, Porto Marina and PCH Highway. And the back there, that goofy little jury-rigged thing there. Okay, well, she was the forerunner to the wisecracking blonde actresses that were to come later on, later in the 1930s, with the likes of Carole Lombard, Jean Harlow, of course, and then later on, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield. So there's always a forerunner. There's always a type that people follow and emulate. Well, this was her, the Ice Cream Blonde herself, Thelma Todd, who was in 120 films. And right here, let me end this with the opening lines of Unaccustomed to As We Are, 1929, the first talkie ever by Laurel and Hardy. And Thelma Todd, they loved her that much to have her in the first opening scenes. Oh, good evening, Mr. Hardy, dear. Good evening, Mrs. Kennedy. This is my friend, Mrs. Kennedy. Good evening. I brought him home for dinner, Mrs. Kennedy. How lovely of you, Mr. Hardy. How is Mr. Kennedy, Mrs. Kennedy? Oh, he's very well, thank you, Mr. Hardy. Is Mr. Kennedy home, Mrs. Kennedy? Not yet, Mr. Hardy. I must be going. Good night, Mr. Hardy. Good night, Mrs. Kennedy. That was Mrs. Kennedy. Well, what's the matter? I was wondering who it was. That was great. One-liners of Stanley. Okay, one more. Knock, knock, knock. Wow, what in the world ever happened here, Mr. Hardy? Well, I was cooking dinner for my friend and he had a slight accident. Oh, you poor dear boy, maybe there's something I can do to help you. Well, that's awfully sweet of you, Mrs. Kennedy. Why, it would be a pleasure, Mr. Hardy. You're sure I'm not imposing, Mrs. Kennedy? Oh, not at all, Mr. Hardy. Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Was that Mrs. Kennedy? Oh, shut up. Okay, well, so there you go. Wherever you are, Thelma, I hope you're in a better place, sweet girl. And good night, sweet princess.